We are ready.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the March 9, 2023 meeting of the Community Board 6 Health and Human Services Committee. My name is LV Barroso, and I'm the chair of the committee. This meeting is called to order at 6:34 p.m. Tonight, we are joined by Assistant District Manager Brendan Burt. As a reminder, New York state law now requires all community board members to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. If your camera is not on and your name not properly displayed, you cannot count towards quorum. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. If there is time following the committee's discussion, we will field questions from the public. Tonight, Jason Promowitz will take minutes. Thank you, Jason. You all should have received an email from the board office with a link to a Doodle sign-up sheet for minute takers at your committee meetings in 2023. For your convenience, the link to the sign-up sheet is being posted in the chat right now. We will now take attendance by roll call. Brendan will conduct the roll call.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Marty Barrett.
Present.
LV Barroso.
Present.
Jason Fromowitz.
Present.
Sadie Howard. I do not see Sadie here, so she is counted as absent. Sandra Leftoff.
Here.
Raj Nayar.
Present.
Kevin O'Keefe is not with us tonight. Aisha Siddiqui.
Present.
Hannah won't be present with us tonight. And I do not see Ronnie White here, so she is also absent, but we do have a quorum.
The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and is reflected on the screen before you. If there is no objection, we will adopt the agenda. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the February 9 meeting were distributed ahead of time by the board office. If there is no objection, we will adopt the minutes as drafted. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the minutes, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the minutes from the February 9 meeting are adopted. They will soon be available on the Community Board 6 website. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few ground rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or state in writing information that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Committee members are required by the state open meetings law to have their Zoom cameras on and your first and last name displayed during tonight's entire meeting from call to order to adjournment. If you must step away from your computer briefly, you are required to leave your camera on. Tonight's agenda, the first one is a discussion on including the EpiPen, which is called the epinephrine auto-injector device, as part of the emergency medical technician bag. So Marty and I started drafting a reso. Brandon, can you please share the reso?
Yes, and I'm actually going to start by scrolling down to the resolved clause, but I can scroll back up to whereas clauses.
Okay. So in 2019-2020, the New York State Senate and Assembly passed a Senate S 3247B, which is also known as the GEOS law, and Assembly A 11369 bills, which required law enforcement officer and firefighters to possess and administer epinephrine by the use of an epinephrine auto-injector device, or it's also called EpiPen as the brand name, to treat people having dangerous allergic reaction in an emergency situation. So this is a law that applies to a city or town or village having a population of less than 1 million. So it does not apply to New York City. And Martin and I have searched to find out if we have a similar law in New York City, but we didn't find anything. So we want to propose this reso so we can adopt the same law that of the state. Brandon?
Yeah, I just wanted to raise my hand to give
Yeah.
some, I'm going to put my hand down now. I'm going to give some additional context here in that I personally reached out to Senator Krueger's and Assemblymember Epstein's office to see if they may happen to know as to why New York City was not included in this bill. A staff person from Senator Krueger's office said that usually when they do a carve out like that, it's because New York City already has some sort of program or local law in place, but they have not been able to confirm that by any means. So they are checking, but I just thought I'd add that little bit of context as to the office's outreach to see as to why New York City was carved out here.
Any input or any question from our members?
I see 3 members have raised their hand: Jason, Sandra, and Raj.
Okay, I don't know why I can't see their hand.
I don't know who raised their hand first, but I see Jason's already unmuted, so perhaps Jason can go.
Yeah, thanks. I'm actually, interestingly, a former New York State and New York City EMT. My certification expired several years ago now, but I used to volunteer as an EMT. I'm a little surprised to hear that EpiPens aren't required in New York City. I in all of my time as an EMT for probably 10 years, in all of my time as an EMT, I had an EpiPen in my kit, and it's a fairly standard item to carry as an EMT. I do have a question though. Do we know if is FDNY not carrying EpiPens in? I understand they're not required to do so, but do we have a reason to believe that it is in practice not being carried by most EMS agencies in the city, including FDNY?
I don't think so. Because it's not, I mean, we couldn't find any law that support this.
But I would just be surprised. I think it's a good idea for it to be in the law. And I'm in support of the resolution. I'd just be surprised if in practice that they weren't carrying it on their own, and that it's like a fairly standard level of care that at least in the ambulance level. I wouldn't be as surprised if firefighters and police aren't carrying it, and I support the idea of requirement for them to expand to it as well. So I think this resolution is a great idea. I just would be surprised if in practice that FDNY ambulances aren't carrying an EpiPen, despite the fact that they're not required to by state law. But I don't have any reason necessarily to believe that that's not true. I just would be surprised from my own previous experience in EMS.
Brendan, do you see the second member that raised hand?
Don't know whether Sandra or Raj raised their hands first, but I'll call on Sandra.
Okay, I'm going to partly pick up what Jason was saying. It sounds like if it's a done deal already, we should know that, right? So we're not putting into law what already exists. That may be a kind of empty gesture. So I think there needs to be somebody needs to get in touch with the police and fire department, see what their policies are. If it already exists, we should know that. The second one is isn't this a health department issue as opposed to a legislative issue? I'm a little confused how this got into the, this should be in the health department, right? The health department has a policy that would be carried out. So it's, sort of two parts of, you're dealing with it as a law as opposed to health department, a policy issue, which I would assume.
We don't have this policy issue in the Department of Health.
And then who would have it if not the health department? It's just a law. It comes as a law about.
It was created in the Senate by New York State.
Okay. But then the second one would be, then it gets back to Jason's point of we really should find out if this is in fact being carried out. If it's already in existence, people are in fact doing it in all the agencies that you have concerns about, then the gesture becomes a little bit more of an empty gesture. So I would like some data to know what in the agencies that are dealing with people's emergencies, in fact, are they doing now?
Can I just jump
Do
in?
you have that data?
Can I offer a perspective real quick on answering one of your questions, if that's okay?
What?
Sure.
Okay, so it's important to note that there are dozens of EMS agencies in New York City in addition to the FDNY. So even if we do find that the FDNY is carrying EpiPens, it may still be worth having this in law to require all of the other dozens of ancillary EMS agencies in New York City, which include many of the hospital systems, several private ambulances. So even if we do verify it with FDNY, it'll be very difficult to confirm whether or not other EMS agencies are doing so. But I do think it's worth clarifying, though, if FDNY and NYPD and are carrying it, because they're going to make up the bulk of the population here.
Yes, I agree with you, Jason. And Brendan, another member is
Yes, Raj.
Raj.
Yeah, just have a question about that New York State Senate and Assembly bill. Do we know who sponsored those bills? And perhaps maybe they can shed some light why there was an exclusion with respect to, a population, I guess, of 1 million or less, with respect to this enforcement. Because if, let's say, if we can understand what their intention was, like maybe they say, well, it's already existing in another form. That might be the reason why it's, it hasn't been addressed or any further. But just wanted to kind of understand who were the sponsors of the bills. that came through.
Are we gonna know that, Brendan, by just looking at the,
Yes. In fact, part of my contact with Senator Kruger's office has involved, they're actually reaching out to their contacts at Senator Julia Salazar's office because Senator Salazar sponsored this bill in the state Senate when it got passed and signed into law. So hopefully we'll be able to get some answers from Senator Salazar's office, with, I guess, Senator Kruger's office being that middle person or that middle office.
so what do we do now, Brendan? So we wait.
Let's first hear from Aisha. I see her hand is
Oh,
raised.
Aisha, okay.
Sorry, wait. I was just wondering, maybe this is a stupid question, but is epinephrine already like are people EMTs trained to give epinephrine
Friend.
that
Yeah,
but not
EMT.
with an EpiPen, like with the syringe or
Yeah.
something?
Yes, EMT are trained to administer epinephrine. Is it not, Jason?
Yeah, that's correct. It's a standard part of EMT training. And just for a little bit of just, I don't know, if people aren't familiar with an EpiPen, it's like it's an auto injector. So it basically looks like a pen. The administration process is you basically just push hard against a thigh, and the needle auto injects, and you hold it there until it's completed the administration of the fluid, and then you take it out. It's very simple. There is some training though. I don't know if the police and fire are by default trained in it though. So I assume they would, by carrying it, they'd also need to be trained in it. I mean, the training's it's easy. It's not hard to do.
Yeah.
So they are trained to administer it. But-
EMTs, yes.
Oh, okay. Understood.
Brandon, do you see any other member?
No, I do not.
So so what do we do right now? So we wait for that from we wait an answer from the office of Senator Kruger.
Can I ask how this came about, and why are we pursuing this as a resolution? Just because we noticed it was missing from the law? Did somebody ask us to make a resolution for this?
Well, I'm not sure how I happened to learn about it. But after that, I asked Marty. Marty, how did we come out with this?
You came up with it, but when I investigated it and saw Gio's law, it only made sense to have it in for New York City as well. And my wife taught me how to use the EpiPen in about 5 seconds. They have a mock EpiPen in order to test, and you just slam it against the thigh, and that's all, and it's done. We probably should also, though, I don't know at what level, to ask the NYPD and the FD if there's specific regulations that they have it or not.
Yeah. So
In the service cabinet meetings, do the FD and PD show up?
Oftentimes they do, and even if they don't, we have intergov contacts at both agencies. So if the committee would like the office to ask FDNY and NYPD about that, we most certainly can.
Okay, so we
So
should,
the-
yeah.
Yeah, there's no time requirement on this, so this can hold off to next month when we get the information back from Kruger's office and the police and fire department. Because I know Elvie looked in the Department of Health where she works, and she didn't find any regulations there.
No, but Kyle would like these to be in the April full board meeting.
It'll be in the May. Or Kyle brought it up. That's right. That's where it came from.
So no, this came from
Huh?
me. I
Oh.
asked him about it, and he said to me that is a simple reso. You should be able to present it in April. So, but I think we should make some research or make some calls to inquire more about it, and hopefully we can get those answers before the full board meeting in April. Okay,
I see a couple of hands up currently. I see Sandra's and Jason's hands are up.
okay.
Okay, I'll just speak quickly. Has there ever been an issue, evidence that that somebody needed the EpiPen in New York City and it wasn't available and there were consequences? So we have some idea of the significance of this, right? If you're going to write a resolution, I understand something's not there. I'd like some data to know that in fact this has been an issue that is consequential, right? As opposed to the
Yeah.
immediacy of
Solution,
getting that resolution.
We
There,
already-
yeah,
Huh?
look in the resolution. Go
What?
further up in the resolution.
We
And you've got the
already looked
data?
into those, Sandra.
What?
We already looked into those. I searched into those and I did not find any.
Okay, so that's problematic. If you're looking at something that's a pressing issue, that suggests it's not a pressing issue, right?
It
So the
is.
question I would,
Look at
Right.
the reso. Marty said, look
What?
at the reso that we are presenting.
no, but I'm only raising the issue of why is it even coming up if we have no data that it's ever been a problem? I understand it's not there, but wait, let me finish. Then you look at what has, what has happened. I don't know why it was raised, right? I understand it's not there. But if the fire department didn't carry its hoses and somebody died, I'd be right on it, right? Because I'd want the data. But if we don't have any data suggest it's ever been a problem, I understand it's not there, but I'd like to know that the data exists. to
It's in
suggest
the
that.
reso. The data is in the
I'm
reso.
sorry, I thought Elby said there wasn't any data on that.
It's in
Well,
the
you didn't
reso,
find
yes.
it.
Yeah,
So
I
what
know,
is it?
Sandra, I understand your point, but
Yeah.
we don't want to wait somebody to die before putting out something like this, okay?
I understand. I'm only talking about priorities. And why did we make that a priority? That's all.
Yes, because that's why. Take a look at the presenting facts that we have on the reso.
I also see Jason's hand is raised again.
Jason,
Yeah, a couple things to offer. Sandra, in response on perhaps why this is necessary beyond having statistics, I think an important reason for an EpiPen to be carried certainly by EMS, but assuming EMS is already carrying it would be very helpful for FDNY and NYPD to carry EpiPens if they're not already, because time is really of the essence in a anaphylaxis situation where basically like the EpiPen will work to prevent someone's airway from closing and then being completely unable to breathe because they are having a severe allergic reaction to a known allergen. And oftentimes, unfortunately, in our city, it can take quite a while for an ambulance to get there. Sometimes it's very fast, sometimes it takes a little while. And oftentimes the first people on the scene, especially in a critical emergency, can be police or the fire department, which can often beat the ambulance depending on what's going on in traffic and a lot of other things by a significant amount of time. So by getting that EpiPen to that patient earlier can make a life or death difference. Also, and as well as certainly the ambulance carrying that. If the ambulance is not carrying it and you have to get the patient to the hospital, the outcome there is not going to be great. And it's also actually very important to note though, with all of this, paramedics, I'm certain, carry EpiPens. So if you have a advanced ALS, ambulance or a paramedic at the scene otherwise, they definitely would have a EpiPen. But again, the response time there could be slower or they may not be available. I'll also, separately, I wanted to speculate as to why this was not required by New York City. EpiPens are expensive. And we have a lot of NYPD vehicles. I'm guessing an EpiPen's probably like $300-400 each.
It's 300 and above.
Yeah, and they have to be replaced every year.
Yeah.
So that's probably why it was taken out. New York City was excluded because it would have been millions of dollars in expenses for New York City. Whereas other cities would have had a much smaller cost to incur. I think that's a bad reason, and I think we should I support us. I think that's a good use of funds, but that's probably the reason why, if I had to guess.
Yes, you're absolutely right, Jason. I was about to say that because of the cost. EpiPen is very expensive. Yeah. It will cost a lot of money for the city. But, don't see. Okay.
But there's also there's solutions that like not every police car carries an EpiPen that are still better than no EpiPens in police cars.
Yeah.
So I see Aisha's hand is raised again.
Okay, that was part of my question, what Jason just answered. Also, I just wanted to know is there a way you could administer epinephrine wrong with an EpiPen and then it's very detrimental, or like you administer it and someone's not actually having an allergic reaction? Just like, is that really dangerous?
Yes.
Okay.
It's not on top of my head, but yes.
I'm not a doctor, and I'm also no longer an EMT. But I think you could definitely do it wrong, and it not have the desired effect. Probably not going to cause, if somebody needs it and you attempt to administer it, this is all just my opinion. If you attempt to administer it and you do it wrong, you may not be solving their anaphylactic shock, but you're probably not going to do any additional, you may hurt them physically, but you're not going to do like additional, you're just not going to help them with their allergic reaction, but you may not be, it's basically my point to say there is like, I would think you'd be better to try than to be too afraid that you're going to cause harm to do nothing. And somebody who doesn't need it, I think that is part of the training, is recognizing who needs an EpiPen. So, and what is anaphylactic shock, and recognizing those symptoms. Again, all just my opinion. I think it would be harmful to misuse it if it was not needed.
All right. Could that, I mean, just in your opinion, could that be a possible reason also why it's not every EMT and it's not in every car, cop car?
But EMTs should certainly recognize the signs and symptoms of an allergic reaction. I think the training's minimal to define what that would be.
All right.
And the most common side effect is irregular heartbeat, but it's manageable.
And I would say, presume most of the time people are aware with such severe allergies, they're aware they have a severe allergy, and they're telling you they have some indication. They will likely indicate to you that I am having an allergic reaction to a thing I know I have an allergic reaction to.
All right. Thank you.
I see Marty has his hand raised as well.
Marty?
In 1992, I read about a pilot program that was going on in Seattle or Portland, where they were putting automatic defibrillators in police cars and fire trucks and ambulances. It was not something that was done in New York at that time. I wrote a resolution for a program to happen in New York, and it passed it was Public Safety Committee at the time, and the board, and into the city council. One of our state senators put $10 million behind it, so to get it going in New York City. Of course, now the automatic defibrillators are everywhere,
Yeah.
including gyms, etc., and sports fields. And it's probably the thing that I'm most proud of in my time of being part of CB6. Safety is really important. For one thing, in New York City at the time, if you had a heart attack on the street, you had a 60% chance of dying. In Portland or Seattle, it was 4%, and it hence coming down in the New York area due to our participation in that, was a great thing. Actually, in our next meeting or so, I'm going to be presenting a resolution to have AED stations at places where there is a good flow through of people. I say this because when I was in England last month, in UK, Manchester and Leeds, they have these stations with AEDs right there in squares and in circles where there's a lot of people congregate, and it's been very effective. Not anyone can just take it out. When somebody's having a problem, they press a button and you're immediately connected to there it's 999, 911, and they then release the device to be used and send an ambulance as well at the same time. And so the individual who's in distress has the ability of having an immediate response, because the AED machines pretty much do it themselves. They tell you where to put the paddles and everything else. So again, any expense to save lives is worthwhile.
Are NYPD carrying AEDs now in all cars? Some cars?
Most cars.
Most cars.
Because the length of time to get an ambulance to a particular spot versus the fire department is the quickest. They're generally have a vehicle at the designation within 4 minutes.
Martin, you give me an idea of a resolution to ask the MTA to have AEDs in maybe some major subway stations?
That's a good idea too. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. The police department, by the way, was the last to adopt it because they didn't want the training, even though the training was minimal. But FDNY jumped on it right away.
Another idea that comes to mind related to the next agenda item on this topic, do we have CPR training as a part of the health fair? And if so, perhaps it would be useful.
During which one, Jason?
For the health fair, do we have any sort of like CPR training or instruction as a part of it?
Well, I think that was also brought up by Aisha. So if we can get somebody, I mean, I am a trainer, but I'm the one that conducts training in the Department of Health, but we have our mannequins and I cannot bring those mannequins out.
Yeah, I think it could be just something as simple as like, 2 minutes, a couple minutes, instructing people how to do like hands-on CPR, not necessarily like
Are you also a trainer, Jason?
formally, unfortunately, no longer. But I
Yeah,
was.
you have, your certification has to be updated to do those. Well, we can explore on that. We can, I mean, I'm a trainer, but I won't be able to do that because I know I'm gonna be running around that day. But
I'd be shocked if we couldn't find someone. I could help.
yeah, if you can, please, we can. Okay, so I think we're gonna do more research and more calls about this, and we'll give everyone an update of whatever we get. So not Brandon? And so
And I'm happy to help with those, with that research and those emails and calls and whatever's needed with Kruger's office, NYPD, and FDNY.
Do we like the idea of doing a reso for MTA? I'm happy to draft that and discuss in the next meeting if that's something people are generally
Yeah.
supportive of.
yes,
Yeah.
Jason, please. Yeah.
They're putting bathrooms in now. They might as well,
Yeah.
that's great.
Okay, so let's proceed to the next agenda, our planning for the spring 2023 Community Board 6 Health Fair. I know Jason developed already the flyer. It's not Jason?
That's right. Yep.
You developed the flyer. The only missing information in there is the location or the site, which Brandon, when is Jesus going to make a decision? Because
We
if-
have been short
because it's
staffed.
delaying. I'm already getting, Jesus has been delaying this. I mean,
Well,
we only have
we're
3 months. We need to invite vendors already, but we cannot invite them if we don't even have location.
yeah, we've been short staffed lately, and that has really hindered that. As you all know, we did have a resolution last night hiring a new person for the office, and with that new person coming on, we should have more bandwidth to identify locations. But our being short staffed has really hindered that.
But we don't need the staff to make a decision for the location. It's Jesus that we're waiting.
Well, I'll need to talk with him, but yeah, there was a site that we visited a month or two ago, but there were some issues with ADA accessibility as well as there not being adequate tables. But yeah, as I said, we have been operating short-staffed, and we therefore haven't had the bandwidth to identify a more suitable location.
Okay, can I ask any members that have already contacted any vendor? I think Marty had already.
Three out of the 10 that I emailed said yes, and now I'm about to call the others by phone since they don't seem to necessarily see their email.
Thank you.
I emailed twice. I emailed them twice, and the first email got 2, the second email got 1, which was this past week, and now I'm going to start calling the other 7.
Anybody else among our members? So should we assign a member to make a list of all the vendors that have been called already?
I'm just marking off on the sheet that you had from last year, but
Right.
you had broken up 10 calls per
Number.
board member here. I took the first 10. And you gave the others out to the other people, so.
Can I have a volunteer from members to put together the list? So anybody, any member that have called and agreed to participate can email that member.
After April 18th for me. Because I'm after April 18th, I will have a lot more time on my hands.
I'd be happy to take it on. I don't have the list though. Actually, I may have it. I'll double check. But yeah, I'd be happy to take it on.
Yeah, so we can say that any members that have called a vendor and agreed to participate, can you please email Jason? Jason will be our contact person for all the vendors.
Great.
Thank you,
And-
Jason.
Thank you so much, Jason. And Jason also created already the flyer. We just need that information about the location, and so we can send out the flyer. Anything else? Any other new business?
Aisha has her hand up.
Aisha?
First, can we see the flyer? Also, I emailed Alexander Clark. She's the girl from the naloxone. Yeah, training. And she said basically if we want someone to distribute, or yeah, we would have to ask someone from like a community-based program. Because they need to be trained and they need to have a certain certification. I have to check the email again to be able to give it to us. So someone would have to have like be at their own stand. If we want that, I can talk to her and figure it out. But I just wanted to make sure.
Yes.
that that's
Yes.
okay. Cool. Thanks.
I just want to ask, I don't recall having seen a list of the vendors. Did we all get that and I missed it?
I think Brendan,
I would need to check through my emails.
Okay.
I think I sent it to you, but honestly,
That's fine. You know,
honestly,
if
it's
you,
so many emails, they just sort of run together at
Okay.
some point. At a certain point.
okay.
Yeah, can you resend it even if you already sent it? I have no idea where it is, to be honest. I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. Makes you feel any better? I don't remember when I sent such a list, so
Yeah.
probably good for all of our benefits.
Brendan, I just forwarded you the flyer if you wouldn't mind sharing.
yeah.
Yes. Just a moment. I haven't received it quite yet, but I expect to see it
Okay.
pretty
so-
much any moment.
Yeah, so while Brendan is waiting, so any suggestion for agenda topic next month? Sandra?
How do you notify people? I mean, so you have the flyer, how do you distribute the flyer?
Oh, the flyer has not been distributed
No,
yet.
No, I understand that. The question is, how does one distribute that in the community? I'm just curious how it works, that's all.
I can answer that question.
Sure.
It would be through probably in this digital age, primarily digital communications such as social media, the CD6 newsletter, the newsletters of other elected officials. At times in the past, we have sent hard copy flyers to certain places, but I don't know in this digital age how useful that is or not. But in any event, here's Jason's flyer.
Brandon, you also advertise in our newsletter.
Yeah, I mentioned our newsletter as being one such thing. This is Jason's flyer, by the way.
Jason, that looks great.
Jason, you have to change the date.
Yeah, I think we were just waiting on the
Yeah.
location, and I'll update the date. Also, we wanted to add the Health and Human Services Committee under the logo. But yeah, once we get the details on it, I'll be able to put another one together.
Doesn't the board office have a mailing list of all the not-for-profits, all the community groups in the CB6 area?
Yeah, all the
We
ones
used to.
were. Yeah, all the ones we're aware of, and certainly when we have these big events, we reach out to them and are like, "Hey, we have this event coming up. Could you spread the word?" So that's another means of distributing the flyer. Now, as to whether they advertise it, we don't know for sure unless we see, like, say, the Murray Hill Neighborhood Association sending out a blast advertising an event of ours. And I use them as an example because they actually are, in my experience, is pretty good about advertising our stuff.
I love the flyer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, I'm gonna go back to my question about any agenda topic for next month. So Jason is gonna draft also a reso, and that's gonna be for May already. Jason. Any other? Sandra, I thought you had.
Yeah, I did. That's what I was gonna raise. I wasn't sure if this was the time. Oops, wait, I just disappeared. Okay, my interest actually, excuse me, is in the work of the community board and reaching out to the community. In a sense, the health fair does that, and other ways that we can reach out. I know I'll give you part of my strong motivation in even joining the community board during the pandemic was, I use my building as an example of what happened to the senior population during that period of time. It's still going on, which is the need really for someone to keep an eye, and so I'll put it, someone to keep an eye out on seniors, right? We didn't know what was happening. I'm in that class of seniors. We have, but there was really a need, I felt, for other people in the building to reach out, make a call once a week or so, see how somebody's doing. We were tremendously isolated. It was a very difficult time. But I think it's an ongoing issue that we, certainly in my building, another example is, it's a building which is became a condo some years ago. And so we have rent stabilized and condo owners. We used to have a very good community of people of all ages. Now we tend to have a split between younger people and seniors, and also rent stabilized versus condo, right? So there's all kinds of splits in the building. The issues of seniors got lost and their medical concerns. And certainly at a time of the pandemic, I felt that there needed to be somebody keeping an eye out. The supers did it in an informal way. The doorman did it in an informal way. I think it would be great to have an ongoing structure in these apartment buildings in which we help or we promote the notion of a mentorship of, of people in the building and the seniors, so that there's ongoing contact, right? So it's something that keeps the seniors engaged. And just have somebody checking up, saying hello. I know we recently found out one of the tenants who's 90 has fallen into real depression. We didn't know that. We haven't seen him during COVID. He only came out late at night, right? So the doorman knew what was going on. The rest of us did not know. It was very sad and very upsetting. And if somebody was there, it would have been great. I know that some of the synagogues and the churches were trying to set that up as this was going on. But I think as an ongoing model, I think would be terrific
Yeah.
for that to be promoted, for us to promote it, for us to figure out a way of how that would work. I think we'd be doing a great service to the community. And it would spread what we do from, I'll give you mine, from resolutions, which are really governmental issues, to actually being a community-based, having community-based functions and reaching out. Again, the health fair is doing that. I think we could do much more of that, right? I mean, I have ideas for other of the committees, but I would really like to see much more of that happening in the community board. But certainly this was something I feel very committed to, because I know what's happened in my own building. All right. And we, and I think that the synagogues and churches were doing great jobs, but not enough, in terms of doing that. And it shouldn't end with the pandemic. So that's the agenda that I would like to see us address. I don't know if you folks are interested or not. So I'm, raising.
Yeah.
the hand.
But actually, in connection with that, I just completed a research in the Department of Health, which can be used for this model. It's a model that we use in order to increase the number of patients that come for TB evaluation to our clinic by having a culturally and linguistically healthcare or layman's person to help somebody to come to our clinic. So, but I cannot, how would I say, I cannot discuss yet this research because the abstract is on embargo. When I say embargo, I can't do anything. I cannot discuss the research because it's being presented to the International Union Against Lung Diseases, and it's going to be submitted for publication in that union. But if it's still in the process of being accepted for publication, that paper is on embargo. So I cannot.
What's embargo? I don't know.
Embargo is it cannot be presented on any conference. It cannot be presented on any seminars. I cannot discuss it until it's accepted by the union.
Okay.
But that thing is came out significant, that research, and that can be applicable to what you are pointing at.
Okay, great. That would be terrific. The other organization, there's the Dorot, which is on the Upper West Side. Oh, Jason, you know it. I see you shaking your head. And so I'd be interested in your view of it, but certainly they're reaching out to that senior population. There was the social workers over at Columbia that pulled that together. And of course, it's taken on a life of its own. But it's an ongoing volunteer based. I think it's terrific. I think the work they do is excellent. It reaches out to older people, goes and visits people in their home, all the stuff we should be doing, right? I mean, and doing it in a conscious way. However they set it up, I think the question is, how does one set that up? I could have the idea. The nuts and bolts would be something really to work. So Jason, if you know more about that organization, I know enough, but not enough, right? Of how it, and I know they got the social workers involved, which I think is terrific. And then a lot of community people.
I know they're great. And I know the work they do, but I don't know much more than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But
I
if
know I
that's-
give them $50 a year.
Well, is that a plus in your mind or a minus? I don't know.
Well, no, they're among the organizations that I contribute to regularly.
Well,
They do a
that's
great job.
They do. Well, but the point of it is that it's a hands-on in terms of a senior population that really needs, the human context, like my neighbor who's going through a terrible depression. Well, God, if we were, reached out, if people made some dinner and stuff, if that's how we begin to think, you're making a true difference in your community. So, and yes, I don't know I can certainly find out more about Dorota as a model, but again, it depends on what anybody's interested in and so on. So, what additional, how far, what we want to do. I think of it locally not as Dorote, which is, people volunteering from all over the city, but it's really, I think of it within one's building, right? The community,
Yeah.
the building, the building as community, and really emphasizing that notion and mutual caretaking and awareness, really including seniors. And it's certainly like in a building in ours, in which it's really split between rent stabilized and condo owners. The rent stabilized begin to disappear into the woodwork because it's the minority. They have a long history, but it's unrecognized. So that's the level. Dorote's different because it's really a much larger base.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can table this for more discussion and more suggestion in our next meeting. So Brandon, can we do that?
Yeah, just want to make sure I have a clear idea of what an agenda item would be. Just, I just want to make sure I'm clear so that we have a well-formed agenda item.
How about some version of person-to-person mentorship of with seniors, something like that?
Okay, so
Of seniors
discussion-
regarding, since this is a health and all of its ramifications. But it's basically a one-on-one mentorship program.
Right. I think we need to identify volunteers to do something like that.
You mean to work on it or to be the volunteers in the building?
Be
Which
a
one?
volunteer, like in each building, we can identify a worker, a lay person that can be a contact person for all emergency.
Sure, but that gets us into the actual doing it. We may or may not want to do this. That's great. You're in the next phase. But
Yeah, but who
Yeah.
knows? There might be somebody there that would like to volunteer for that.
sure, that would be wonderful. But I think people need to understand some of the, there's got to be an awareness. And I assume that I mean, again, that might be the base of a meeting that's a larger community-based meeting on that issue, but
Yeah.
I think that's to be decided.
Okay. Any other new business?
I see Aisha has her hand raised.
Aisha?
Just really fast, I don't know if you're aware of City Meals on Wheels, and I think we can participate in that because you can bring the meals to your certain area, like in Manhattan. I participate in the Valentine's Day cards. You make like Valentine's Day cards and then you put it in the meal and then you give it to them. I don't actually go with them, so I'm not sure how that works, but we can maybe look into that.
I think you have to sign up for Meals on Wheels. A senior has to sign up for that one and they deliver it to them. It's a program that is an existing program already. Any other? No other new business?
I don't see any hands raised.
Huh? Brenda?
I said that I don't see any hands raised.
Oh, okay. So seeing no further business, I think we can adjourn the meeting at 7:33 p.m. Okay, thank you so much, everyone.